The sound of the lock clicking shut carried through the cold night like a gunshot. Rain hissed against the tin roof of the old barn, and under the lantern's thin glow, a figure shivered in the corner. Small, barefoot, her dress torn at the hem. Caleb Wren hadn't meant to find her. He'd ridden back late from the lower pastures, saddle creaking under the weight of a day gone wrong. The drought had already taken half his cattle, and the men were restless, whispering that maybe it was time to sell. He was halfway to the house when he saw the light flickering from the barn window, one he hadn't left burning. When he stepped inside, the smell hit first: hay, damp earth, and fear. The girl froze when she saw him, clutching a half loaf of his bread like a weapon. Her cheeks were hollow, eyes wild, hair tangled like she'd run through miles of brush. "Put that down," Caleb said quietly, voice rough from dust and whiskey. She didn't move. Only the rain filled the silence, tapping like distant hoofbeats. He could see now. She couldn't have been more than 16, too young to be out here alone. "She took from your kitchen," one of his hands, Boone, said from the doorway. "Found her sneaking in through the fence. Figured you'd want her locked up till morning." Caleb's jaw tightened. "You lock up strays now?" Boone spat into the dirt. "She's a thief, boss." The girl's lips trembled. "I didn't mean to," she started, but her voice broke before she could finish. Caleb looked at her again, really looked. And something shifted behind his eyes. The way she held herself, the shade of her hair, the tremor in her lower lip. It pulled at a memory he'd buried years ago. "Leave us," he told Boone. When the door shut, Caleb knelt slowly, lantern light catching the scar along his jaw. "What's your name, girl?" She hesitated. "Lila," she whispered. The name hit him like a bullet. He hadn't seen coming. He swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Lila what?" The girl looked up through tears. "Lila Wren." And the rain outside began to fall harder. Caleb sat in silence, the storm hammering against the walls like it wanted in. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 15 years, not since Sarah rode off with their newborn after the fire that took the old house. He'd searched for them until the tracks vanished near the canyon. He'd told himself they'd died. But now, the girl with that same pale gray gaze, his gaze, was sitting in his barn, stealing bread because she was hungry. "Who told you that was your name?" he asked quietly. "My ma," she said. She died last winter, in Sage Hollow." Caleb felt something in his chest twist like barbed wire. Sage Hollow was 2 days' ride north, a mining town that had burned half to ash last winter. Boone's voice drifted from outside the door. "You want me to fetch the sheriff, boss? Ain't right letting a thief off easy." Caleb's eyes stayed on the girl. "You tell anyone else your name?" She shook her head. "Then you didn't steal," he said softly. She frowned. "But you took bread from your own blood." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Tears brimmed in her eyes, confusion and disbelief twisting across her face. Outside, Boone knocked again. "Boss?" Caleb rose, steadying his breath. "She stays," he said firmly. "That ain't smart. Word gets out you're harboring thieves." "Then let it," Caleb snapped. "You forget who owns this land." Boone's boots crunched away into the mud, grumbling. Caleb waited until his footsteps vanished before turning back to the girl. "You've got your mother's eyes," he murmured. Lila drew her knees to her chest. "You knew her?" "I did." He took a long pause. "Better than most." She studied him through the lantern light, suspicion mixing with fragile hope. "You're saying you're my—" "I'm saying you ain't alone," he said, voice trembling. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Then, faint and far, came another sound. Horses. Several. Moving fast across the wet plain. Caleb stiffened. "Get up," he ordered. "Why?" "Because trouble just found us." And before she could ask more, he doused the lantern and pulled her toward the back door of the barn as lightning tore the sky open. By the time the riders came over the ridge, the rain had turned to a cold mist. Caleb could see their outlines through the haze. 5, maybe 6 men. One carried a torch, its flame guttering in the wind. "Stay quiet," he whispered, crouched behind the corral fence with Lila beside him. She shivered, soaked to the bone, clutching the old coat he'd thrown over her shoulders. "Who are they?" she whispered. "Men from Sage Hollow by the looks of it. Miners or bounty chasers. They follow fire and rumors both." The lead rider shouted, voice echoing. "We're looking for a girl. Scrawny thing, brown hair, goes by Lila. She stole from the company store. Word is she came this way." Caleb's stomach dropped. Lila's face went white. "I didn't steal from them," she whispered fiercely. "I took what they owed my ma, her pay, her medicine." He placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "I believe you." The riders dismounted, boots sinking into the mud. Their torches lit the yard in orange flickers, casting the house and barn in restless shadows. Boone stepped out onto the porch, rifle slung across his arm. "Evening, boys," he called. Caleb's pulse pounded. Boone hadn't left, and now the fool might get them all killed. "You seen a girl?" the leader barked. Boone spat into the dirt. Maybe not." The leader stepped closer. "We got reason to think she's here. The company wants her back, dead or alive." Lila flinched. Caleb's mind raced. He could step out now, end this before blood hit the mud, or stay hidden, risk them burning the barn with her inside. He looked at her, trembling, breathing quick, every bit of her mother in her face. "Stay here," he said. "Don't go," she pleaded. But he was already moving, heart hammering like hooves on dry ground. When he stepped into the torchlight, the rain stopped. Every man turned toward him, hands near their guns. "She ain't here," Caleb said evenly. "And if she were, you'd be better off riding on." The leader sneered. "Or what, old man?" Caleb cocked the rifle in his hands, the same one he hadn't touched in years. "Or I'll show you why they call this land Wren's Keep." The standoff broke under thunder. The riders shifted uneasily, sensing something colder than the storm. Caleb's rifle stayed steady, but his hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the past pressing on him. The leader smirked. "You ain't gonna shoot 6 of us." "Try me," Caleb said. Boone's voice cut in from the porch. "He ain't bluffing, fellas. I seen what he did back in Carter's Crossing. Man's got ghosts." A tense silence. The leader spat and signaled his men to back off, but his eyes promised it wasn't over. "We'll be back come daylight," he growled. Caleb didn't lower his rifle until their torches vanished into the dark. When he turned, Boone was watching him. "You sure you want to keep her, boss? You just bought yourself a war." Caleb looked toward the barn. "She's blood," he said simply. Boone hesitated, then nodded once. "Then I'll ride with you." That night, Caleb lit a single lantern inside the barn. Lila sat in the hay, eyes red from crying. "They'll come again," she said. "Let 'em." She shook her head. "You could have handed me over. You didn't even know me." Caleb knelt beside her. "You think I didn't? I knew the second you said your name." She blinked at him. "Then why'd you let Ma go? Why didn't you come for us?" The question sliced deeper than any knife. He stared at the floorboards. "Because I thought I'd lost you both in that fire. I buried 2 graves with my own hands." Her lip trembled. "She never stopped talking about you." He looked up. "She forgave me?" "She said you were a stubborn fool, but a good man once." Caleb gave a broken laugh. "That sounds like her." Lila took something from her pocket, a small silver locket, soot-stained but intact. She opened it. Inside was a faded sketch of Sarah Wren, smiling faintly beside a younger Caleb. "She told me to find you," Lila whispered. "Said if I ever got lost, I'd know where home was." Caleb closed her hand around the locket. "Then you did just that." Outside, the wind howled like the old ghosts of the prairie, but inside the barn, there was warmth for the first time in years. Dawn came hard and pale over the valley. The mist burned away, revealing 6 riders waiting on the ridge, their silhouettes sharp against the morning sky. Caleb stood in the doorway of the barn, rifle slung across his shoulder, hat low. Boone saddled the horses in silence, jaw set. Lila stood beside them, wearing her mother's locket like armor. "They'll come down soon," Boone muttered. Caleb nodded. "Then we'll meet 'em halfway." He turned to Lila. "You ride out back to the creek. Stay low till it's done." "I'm not running again," she said firmly. "Lila? I'm a wren. You said so yourself." He almost smiled. "So you are." The riders descended, mud flinging up beneath their hooves. Their leader raised his rifle. "Last chance, old man." Caleb raised his own. "You had yours last night." The gunfire cracked through the morning like thunder over dry plains. Smoke filled the yard, horses screamed, and Boone shouted orders. Caleb moved like a man with nothing left to lose, steady, precise, unyielding. 2 riders fell before they even reached the fence. Another veered off, wounded. When the smoke cleared, the yard was silent except for the hiss of rain returning. Boone leaned against a post, bleeding from the arm but grinning. "Guess they won't be coming. And back." Caleb wiped mud from his face, breathing hard. "Let's hope not." Lila ran from the creek, tears streaking through the dirt on her cheeks. "You're hurt." "Just grazed," he said. Then, quieter, "You did good. Staying put." She threw her arms around him, and for the first time in decades, Caleb let someone hold him. The world was still dangerous, still hard. But in that embrace, he felt something rebuild inside him. Days later, the ranch was quiet again. The men returned to work, the fences repaired, the air clean after rain. Lila helped in the kitchen, her laughter carrying through the open windows, a sound Caleb had thought he'd never hear again. One evening, he stood at the edge of the pasture, watching the sun sink behind the red hills. The land looked alive again, golden in the dying light. Lila joined him, slipping her hand into his. "Think Ma can see us?" He smiled faintly. "If she can, she's probably saying I finally did something right." They stood in silence as the sky turned to fire and shadow, the barn behind them glowing warm against the fading light. Final shot line, 2 silhouettes, father and daughter, framed against a sunset, the wind carrying the last whisper of a promise finally kept.